Hi, my name is Marty Shupak for Shupak Sports. I want to welcome you all. And we talk about sports skills, we do interviews, and we do a little bit of parenting sprinkled in, which I like to give a couple of tips. Today, we are going to be talking about T ball as far as catching and fielding. We've done throwing and we've done hitting. So this is on T-ball catching and fielding. Before we start, I want to ask you guys a trivia question, which I love to do. I try to do it every week, and we'll have the answer at the end. Now, in 1968, this is going way back, Harvard played Yale in a famous football game, and the final score was a tie 29-29. Uh, your parents or grandparents might know about it. But in that game, there was a famous actor that did play in that famous Harvard Yale game in 1968. I'll give you four choices. Was it Tommy Lee Jones? Was it Kurt Russell? Was it Denzel Washington? Or was it Jack Nicholson? One of those four. And we're going to come back to that. Okay. Anyway, as far as catching and fielding in T-ball, first thing you want to do, and I've said this a lot of times before when dealing or teaching young kids, you want to separate skills. If you're teaching throwing, don't have them catch the ball. If you're teaching them catching, don't have them throw the ball. So in this particular skill of catching and fielding, you want to make sure you have a lot of balls, and whatever drill you do, they'll catch the ball, and instead of throwing it back, they'll roll it to the side. This is a very, very effective technique, and you're focusing just on one task at hand. Also, if you're coaching T-ball, your team, you want to separate players by skill. You're going to have some players that are returning. Separate them. Most T-ball teams in the country have 5 and 6 year olds. Some have as young as 4 and old as 7. But just remember that you have a variety of skills and you want to predetermine who's going to be in what drill. So write it down. I always carried an index card. Now, as far as gloves, I mentioned last week with the bats, if you go to one of these big box stores, like a Walmart or whatever, into the sporting goods section, you'll see a sign that says official T-ball glove. As far as I know, there is no official T-ball glove, and I would stay away from that and talk to your league or talk to your coach if you're a parent watching this. And the reason being is a lot of those gloves that they're selling, the big box stores for T-ball players, they're what I call pancake gloves. They're really not too effective in catching a ball, and they're mass produced, could be China, could be Korea, by millions at a time. So ask your league and ask your coach recommendations as far as getting a glove. Just like in hitting, players, you have to keep insisting for them to keep their eye on the ball. Okay? Um, and you'll find out, I'm going to get to 5 drills, but just to mention, you're going to find out that when they do become efficient in fielding or catching the ball, once you're in a game situation, no matter how many times you tell them, a lot of these T-ball players don't know where to throw the ball. You can tell them a million times in practice, you catch the ball, throw it to first. In a game situation, they're going to forget all that, or a lot of them won't have the instinct of what to do. Don't get discouraged. Just be patient with the kids. If you're working with your own child at home, be very patient with them. Do repetitions and don't overdo it. And also, I just want to mention there's a gentleman named Paul Meador, Meador, who has a great video on YouTube with T-ballers. I would recommend that you view that little video. Okay, we're going to get to 5 drills now, and I'm going to do the same technique I did last time. I'm going to hold it up as close as I could, try to explain it as best I could in a slow manner. and I'll try to add to it. So bear with me as I hold this up. This drill is called the knockdown drill. And what you're doing in this drill is you're getting not necessarily baseballs or soft covered balls. I used everything from hacky sack balls to bean bags to yarn. And what you want to do is you want to throw it to the kids, and they have to block it from getting by them. Okay, something like a goalie. And later on, in a few minutes, I'll show you a drill that we call the goalie drill. And what you want to do is you want to try to make sure that if they could, they have their fingers up when it's above their waist. When it's below the waist, if you throw the ball below the waist, they have their fingers down. So you could point that out. Again, don't overcoach, don't over-explain. Do the activity. This is a great at-home drill. Okay, it's called the knockdown drill. Okay, the next drill I have, I call it the plastic bag or newspaper drop. Now, as it turned out, both these items, plastic bags and newspapers, are going by way of the dinosaurs, but you can still get some. And what I do is I hold them up and I drop them, and the player or your son or daughter has to catch it. You could use, I love lately using rolled up newspaper. And the beauty of this is that it's a non-threatening item. And your goal as a T-ball coach or a parent of a T-baller is to give your child confidence in every activity they do. And remember, you don't want to overdo the activity. Some of these activities, you're probably not going to do it more than 3 to 5 minutes. All right. So again, what you're doing is you're holding an item up, plastic bag or rolled up newspaper, you're dropping it, and your player has to catch it. Now, one thing I want to mention also, I'm saying they have to catch it, but when they're young, I propose that it's not the most important thing. If they're not using gloves, you want to just have them make contact with their hands and they don't have to catch it. Okay, now there's an interesting point to all this because I have a number of drills and I preach to the older kids, 11, 12, 13, and 14 on ground balls. You don't have to necessarily catch the ball. You just have to stop it and keep it in front of you. And we have a number of drills for the older kids geared to that where they have to move their feet. So at a young age, even T-ball age, you want to mention to them, or you just want to start out where they just have to make contact with the hand and they have to keep the ball in front of them. Okay, the next drill, and I've used this for a lot of different ages, is the color code drill. And what I do is I take balls, again, soft covered balls, and I'll put like a colored piece of painter's tape on it, like this. This is blue. And I'll at first just throw a ground ball, and I'll tell the player, you have to yell out the color. And what I usually do is I use painter's tape, and I'll take 3 colors. Usually it's blue, red, and yellow, and they have to call it out. If you want to make it easier, you could color code this on both sides. So they're going to see the blue as it comes to them. All right, you want to try to hide the color before you throw it. You want them to really focus on it. So that's the color code ball drill. All right, and the next drill I call the sketch catch. Again, T-ballers, remember, our number one goal when you're coaching T-ball is you want them to come back and play the next year. Too many times I've seen coaches, and I've said this a million times, they have their kids pair off and start catching with regular hard balls, and I experienced 2 situations where kids were hit with balls
first day of practice, and I was a commissioner of T-ball, and they never went on the field again. And our goal is to have them come on the field the next year. Now, the Sketch Catch, it's the old, and I went to my garage, I found it. I did have an old pair where you have the paddles and you have the sketch ball. And you're throwing it to them as the hand is behind it, and they're just holding it up. And this is easier. The face of this paddle is easier for the ball to stick than it is a glove. You want to work your way up. Remember, I preach the progression method where you work your way up for just touching the ball, maybe to go to sketch, to catching the ball in the glove. Okay, don't go out and spend a ton of money, but if you have one lying around, it's very effective. All right, the next drill. And this is the last drill. It is the goalie drill. And I've used this with all ages. And again, I set up 2 cones. Depending on the ability and age, will depend upon how far apart they are. You put a player in the middle, you have a coach, and he has a bucket of balls. You can have a backup, you don't have to. And you're throwing ground balls, and the player has to stop them. And what we want to do is we want to get players to move their feet. So you go back and forth, throwing the ground balls. And again, you want to preach to the players. It's so important. You don't really have to catch the ball. You just want to stop the ball. You want to keep it in front of you. Okay, it's a great drill. I've done it with my kids in my backyard. They love it. So those are 5 drills. And if you want, I'll have a link at the bottom, but they all come out of my latest book on T-ball drills. It has 110 drills. Don't go out and buy it if you can't afford it. Just go to your library. They'll have it. If they don't have it, they'll get it. And also, it's free, I think, on Amazon Unlimited, it's called. So again, I don't want you to have to go out and buy my products. I have enough menus out there where I make them available. So that's the segment on catching and fielding. All right. And remember what I just said a couple moments ago. Kids that do become proficient in catching the ball, when you put them in a game situation, sometimes they have no idea what to do with it. And that'll come on with age. And you'll notice that in all these activities that I've gone over the last 3 weeks, throwing, batting, and catching and fielding, the kids that are usually better skilled than other kids are kids that are, number one, have better athletic ability, and number 2, they usually have an older brother or sister that plays baseball or softball. That's what I found in all the years I coach. So that's the segment on throwing. I want to get to the parental tip of the week, and I want to talk about chores with kids. And with very, very young kids, they want to help their parents do stuff. Don't turn them away, all right? If you're a mom and you're cooking chocolate chip cookies, include them in it. Make sure they have a small task that's separate from your task. So if you're mixing a batter, so to speak, have them throw in the chips. When I was a parent, well, I'm still a parent, but when my kids were younger, my thing was to get the kids involved in the recycling. And I made sure we did it together. And the way I did this is I took care of all the sharp items. I had one son take care of the plastic and another son take care of the newspapers. And we would walk it out together to the side at the end of the driveway. It's so important. If they want to do something with you, a chore, please acknowledge it. It'll go miles and miles the older they get. Let me just peek up there too. Oh, and it's okay to reward them. And I don't mean rewarding them with a chocolate candy bar. All right. When I coach and I use this technique in coaching, I'll shout out, I need help. Could somebody bring the equipment bag to home plate. And when someone does, I'll then shout out, Johnny took the equipment bag, you get 3 extra swings in batting practice. Now, that's a lot more effective than if I said, whoever gets the equipment bag and brings it to home plate will get 3 extra swings. Think about that too. All right. So the tip of the week for parenting is acknowledge your child if they want to help out with you. All right. Now, back to the trivia question. We're going to wrap this up. I try to keep this between 15 and 20 minutes. Last time I went over a little. The question was, in the famous Harvard-Yale game of 1968, it ended in a tie 29-29. There was a famous actor who played in that game. Was it Tommy Lee Jones, Denzel Washington, Kurt Russell, or Jack Nicholson? The answer was it was Tommy Lee Jones. He played right guard. He was nominated for 4 Academy Awards. He's a very good actor. And coincidentally, at Harvard, his roommate was the former Vice President Al Gore. So for Marty Shupak, if you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Shupak Sports. I have a whole bunch of links below. You can open it up and see all my products. And remember that your child is a superstar in something. Let's both find out what it is. Until next time, this has been Marty Shupak.